Jonathan was just another abandoned loser, left alone after a fighter jet turned his parents into dust. But his life gets flipped when the psychotic Amazon version of John Wick picks him up like a stray puppy and turns him into her personal attack dog. However, before any of this, somewhere in Tesla Starlink base, some people watch as a rocket launch, and the name of Jormungand is being said by the team. Meanwhile, a white-headed guy named Jonathan watches a fighter plane fly and thinks that this is the type of fighter jet that killed his parents. Some time passes, and in a different country, Jonathan is being forcefully taken somewhere by a creepy-looking person named Coco. Coco tells Jonathan that some of her materials are taken away, and she wants him to recover them, and hands him a pistol, saying this will also be a test to determine his skills. Two weirdos, on the other hand, are keeping an eye on them. When they ask who Jonathan is, Coco throws the door open, slamming it into another guy who is having a drink behind it. Everyone in the room gets surprised to see Jonathan, but she introduces them to Jonathan, which surprises them, as they quickly realize that he is a child soldier and see that he is carrying a gun. Coco then asks Tojo for an update, and he confirms that their container is still being held up in port. When she confirms to Jonathan that they will need to recover it, he just tells her to tell him who to shoot. Afterward, Jonathan and Coco head out, and Coco receives a call from some minister who tells Coco that they won't let her bring her container to the country. After the call, Coco reveals that she checked Jonathan out before bringing him on and knows all about him, even the fact that he hates weapons. Jonathan responds that he hates talking, but Coco tells him that he will have to know that he is working under her. Meanwhile, behind their car is Sophia, a goth chick, and Lem, who asks her what she thinks of Jonathan, but she tells him that they were just introduced. Three cars suddenly come up from behind as Jonathan asks Coco how she treats people who are tailing her. When she replies to shoot first and never asks, he stands up through the open sunroof and fires on a car alongside them. The driver is killed, and it smashes into the guardrail. On the other hand, the minister observes everything that's happening and tells someone nearby that Coco's container must not fall into the hands of the Air Force. Meanwhile, night has already fallen, and Sophia fires at a van that's driving in front of her and Lem. After taking the shot, she quickly asks Lem to move in and get her closer to the van. On the other hand, Jonathan spots another military reinforcement coming in and attacking their car, but Coco quickly realizes that the attackers are actually soldiers. Jonathan suddenly sees someone getting ready to fire a rocket launcher at them. But just as the rocket is launched, Jonathan throws a grenade, and it ends up colliding with the rocket in midair. Afterward, they arrive at the port, and Coco turns to Jonathan and tells him that she's going to teach him how to accept guns from the perspective of an arms dealer. When he asks her why she sells weapons in the first place, Coco calmly answers that she does it in the name of world peace. Later that night, Jonathan is seen sitting on the floor in Coco's room, looking like a beggar, when a man approaches him and tells him to team up with Lem, saying that Lem will be the one keeping an eye on Coco. Curious, Jonathan then asks Lem why he chooses to follow someone like Coco, and Lem responds that he does it because, for him personally, it's fun and that everyone has their own reasons for sticking around. The next morning, Coco gathers her team for an emergency briefing and explains that an arms convoy has entered the country, possibly transporting around 15 disassembled Hindi helicopters along with spare parts. She suspects this is the doing of a rival arms dealer who's trying to take advantage of the chaos she unintentionally caused. Coco looks worried because headquarters is already aware of the situation, and if things go badly, her payment will be reduced. She goes on to assign roles. Tojo and Sophia will go speak with the minister, while Lem, Yugo, Lutz, and Mao will be providing her with direct support. Wiley and are instructed to stay back and serve as a communication relay between her and HQ, and Jonathan will be accompanying her on the mission. Afterward, as Coco and the others head out to meet Kloshkin, she hands Jonathan a spare pistol, explaining that it's just in case things get difficult since Kloshkin might cause trouble. When the car Yugo is driving pulls up beside them, Coco gives a signal, and the two vehicles split up and go their separate ways. Once they arrive at the meeting location, Coco quietly tells Jonathan to act like he's her little brother and warns him not to make a move unless she gives him the signal first. Afterward, they step into the meeting room while, at the same time, Tojo and Sophia meet with the head of the Air Force. Back in the meeting, Kloshkin doesn't seem bothered by the threat and questions whether Coco feels sympathy for another arms dealer. Without warning, Kloshkin grabs the coffee pot and smashes it over Coco's head. Instantly, Jonathan pulls out his pistol, but Coco quickly orders him not to shoot. On the other hand, The snipers who had been positioned with Kloshkin and were ready to shoot Coco are already dead, taken out by Lutz before they could act. When Kloshkin tries to radio his team, it's Lem who answers instead. Meanwhile, over at the air base, the colonel officially cancels the purchase agreement, and Kloshkin hears the news, realizing the deal has fallen apart. At that moment, Coco gives a clear signal, and Jonathan responds immediately by pulling out his spare pistol and shooting Kloshkin in the head. He then checks Coco's head wound and sees that it's only a scratch, though it's bleeding more than expected. The next day, Coco is moving her goods and plans to meet up with Sophia and Tojo in the next town, but she can't get in contact with them. Her transport is being watched over by guards using a vehicle from the National Border Police. All of a sudden, the guard's armored vehicle gets hit by an anti-tank missile, and the whole convoy is forced to stop right away. Without thinking, Coco jumps out of her car and runs toward a nearby cliff. When she looks out from the edge, she sees a city far away, and it's covered in thick smoke. Lem walks up beside Coco and says it looks like people are fighting over a pipeline, and when Coco looks through her binoculars and notices that the local GSM towers have been destroyed, a group of soldiers nearby start keeping a close eye on Coco and her squad. Moments later, those soldiers move in and surround them from every side. But then, the soldiers' commander spots Coco and is surprised to see that she's actually young and sharp-looking. After that, Coco and her team are taken to the nearby town, where she is introduced to Major Pollock, the new local commander in charge of the area. They accept the SAMs that Coco was delivering. The conversation is suddenly interrupted by the arrival of Mildo and Lou, the bodyguards of Curry. Afterward, Curry and Coco both sit down with Pollock, and during the meeting, Mildo spots Jonathan. She laughs a little when she figures out that he's part of Coco's team. Coco then finds out that Curry already sold Pollock a batch of FIM-92 Stinger missiles. When Coco tries to leave, saying that her delivery is complete, Pollock stops her and asks for a new radar system since their old one was destroyed in a bombing. After that, Coco tells Lutz to stand down and calmly turns to Pollock, saying she knows his men are out in the mountains chasing down anyone who got away. She questions why he's working so hard to keep the battle over the pipeline a secret. Pollock just laughs it off and repeats his request for the radar, telling Coco not to worry about payment. As things wrap up, Mildo says goodbye to Jonathan with a smirk, clearly still amused. Meanwhile, Curry leans over to Coco and quietly remarks that Pollock is not an easy man to deal with. As the team walks away from the meeting, Coco quietly signals to them that they'll be escaping later, even though they'll act like they're going along with Pollock's deal for now. She also tells them they'll meet up with Tojo and Sophia soon. Later that night, Tojo tells Sophia that they should head back in the morning to help Coco. The next day, Coco gets ready to leave. Pollock tells her that once she crosses the mountain pass, she'll be able to contact HCLI. He also assigns 2 of his men to go with her and warns her not to run away while pretending she's agreed to his deal. Later, one of the soldiers starts yelling at Coco, saying that she's just making things worse by throwing fuel on the fire and letting people die. As they keep moving, they drive into thick fog and come to a stop. Out of nowhere, 2 helicopters show up in the sky and start shooting at targets in the nearby valley, forcing everyone to jump off the road and take cover. Someone fires a Stinger missile at the helicopters, but it misses. While hiding, Coco sees a soldier crouched under cover not far away. She and Jonathan crawl over to him, and she asks who fired the Stinger. When the helicopters finally fly off, he looks at Coco and says he noticed she was smiling the whole time during the attack. When they get back to the car, Jonathan looks at Coco and asks her why she isn't trying to sell weapons to these people. Coco replies that her gut feeling tells her this war will be finished in just 2 days and will turn into a slow, messy fight with no real winner in the end. A little later, the team is walking down the road when they spot Tojo and Sophia. Coco runs up and gives Sophia a quick hug, happy to see her again. Soon after, they all arrive at an old, abandoned watch factory, but Lem finds out that CCAT has already gotten there before them. While Coco sits down to talk with Curry, Mildo walks over to Sophia and says she wants to test her again, but Sophia doesn't seem interested at all. Afterward, Curry explains that Mildo caused trouble by starting the fight that got their escorts killed, and because of that, Pollock's men might now be after them. Following Curry's idea, Sophia and Mildo head outside to scout the area. Once they're alone, the 2 of them pull out their knives, ready to fight each other. Even though Mildo fights with 2 machetes, she still can't land a hit on Sophia, who only uses 1 knife the whole time. Sophia explains that Mildo chose to fight in the dark on purpose, hoping that her missing eye would make it harder for her to win, but it didn't work. Meanwhile, back at Pollock's base, he gives new orders to his men out in the field. He tells them to go after Coco's team first, instead of Curry's group, even though it was Curry's people who killed their escorts. After everyone gathers outside in the open area, Lem looks around and realizes that they're completely surrounded. Without warning, Coco tells her team to drop their weapons, which surprises Curry and makes Mildo laugh. Then, Coco calls out to Pollock's soldiers, pointing out that her team is the bigger group standing outside, and that only 3 people are inside the building. Inside the ruins, Pollock finds out that both Coco's team and Curry's team have escaped. He tells his subordinate not to stress about getting in trouble, and says he'll take all the blame himself. Then he turns to look at the missile launcher that has been set up, which caused the bombing to stop. The next day at the airport, Coco watches the news and sees that the war is officially over. Meanwhile, in a deserted region, a guy with crooked teeth and a mean girl named Chinatsu are beating up some boss. The guy named Shirsho has no trouble taking down everyone around. After the fight, he asks the boss why he thought it was smart to steal from their group. The boss looks over at Chinatsu and notices her weird eyes. He then asks why she isn't wearing any plot armor. Shirsho tells him their job is to make him suffer as much as they can before he dies. Then, they finish setting up a gun with a timer that's ready to shoot him again and again. After they finish setting the timer, Shirsho and Chinatsu walk away while the boss gets shot over and over by the gun. Later, as they're walking, Shirsho looks at her and asks where her underwear went, but Chinatsu asks if he wants to stare at her private spot too. Shirsho quickly says that he only likes older women. Meanwhile, Coco and the others have arrived in a new country, and she takes a moment to talk with Jonathan. She tells him that they're going to try teaching him different subjects because, as part of her team, he needs to grow a bit more in terms of being human. Even though her team members are a little crazy in their own ways, she says they're all really smart. After that, Coco sits down and starts staring at some pictures on her laptop. Jonathan comes over and asks what she's looking at. It turns out she's checking out a list of assassins that were sent by HQ. Even though it looks serious, Coco doesn't seem too worried because she trusts the police force and knows her own bodyguards are strong. Then, Tojo notices that 2 of the names are people who call themselves Orchestra. Coco already knows about them and explains that there used to be 8 members in the group, but 7 of them have died. Back when they were at their most dangerous, they once fired over 20,000 bullets during a shootout with the French police. After that, Coco leaves Tojo in charge of helping Jonathan study. But just as the lesson is about to start, Jonathan quickly stands up and says he needs to use the bathroom to play with his monster. He's gone for such a long time that Tojo decides to go look for him, but instead finds a note that says thank you. Tojo thinks to himself that teaching Jonathan won't be easy for the others, since each one has to cover a different subject. At the same time, Shirsho and Chinatsu are walking through the city on their way to their next mission. As they walk, they pass by Jonathan, who is sitting on the sidewalk. Chinatsu notices him and stops for a moment, thinking he looks kind of cute. But when Chinatsu tries to show Shirsho, the boy is already gone. At the same time, Coco is thinking about buying a Rolex, but Sophia quickly offers to get it for her as a present. Coco tries to say no and stop her, but Sophia insists, saying it will be a sign of how much she cares. Right after Sophia disappears from view, someone grabs Coco's wrist from behind and pulls her back. It's Chinatsu. She says Coco is an arms dealer and asks why she's selling weapons. Chinatsu is caught off guard by Coco's answer, and just then Sophia comes running back to help her. At the same time, Shirsho, who is sitting at a cafe nearby, pulls out his pistol, which makes Sophia notice him right away. When she shouts out, Jonathan jumps down from the rooftop and shoots at Shirsho. Chinatsu manages to break free, and Sophia quickly takes cover. After that, Jonathan protects Coco while Chinatsu pulls out her grenade launcher, but before anything else can happen, the police show up. Not far away, Lem is around the corner and sends an update to the rest of the team. He asks for his regular gun to be brought to him and tells Lutz and Wiley to climb up into a bell tower. Sophia tells Coco she's sorry for not being more helpful, but Coco tries to comfort her and says it's okay. Meanwhile, Chinatsu warns Shirsho about 2 police snipers on a nearby rooftop. Since they're close enough, Shirsho uses his AKS to shoot and take both of them down. Soon after, Sophia and Coco meet up with Lem and Jonathan. Lem hands his headset to Jonathan and tells him to run and keep Coco safe. After a long fight, Lem helps Sophia walk, and she says she thinks Chinatsu is the one keeping Shirsho under control. After that, there's a flashback where Chinatsu is at a show in a city with her parents and Shirsho. While they're sitting and watching, Shersho suddenly stands up and shoots a woman in the head just because he doesn't like the way she sings. Then he pulls out a light machine gun and starts shooting into the crowd like it's nothing, killing Chinatsu's mom and dad. When he runs out of bullets, he kisses the crucifix he wears. Right after that, Chinatsu shoots Shersho in the shoulder, surprising him. But he doesn't stop as he slowly walks toward her while she just stands there. He holds her face and kisses her on the cheek. Right now, Jonathan and Coco are still running along the seafront when 4 members of her team spot them from a car. The team quickly moves to protect them as the Sierra vehicle pulls up beside them. Mao is shocked to see that Shersho, who is standing in the Sierra, is holding a Negev machine gun. He and R, with help from Sophia, start shooting back and forth with Shersho. Then the clown gang speeds ahead of them and disappears for a short moment. Mao is shocked when he notices that there's an M2 Browning machine gun in the back seat, and he quickly warns Coco before Shersho returns. Chinatsu feels bad about having to kill Jonathan, but tells herself it's okay, because he'll have someone to keep him company in heaven. Jonathan suddenly shoves Coco into the harbor right before Chinatsu pulls the trigger on the steering wheel. Shersho is just about to rush out again, but Chinatsu stops him right as Jonathan fires back, and her hat suddenly flies off her head. When she sees the hole in the hat, she tells Shersho they should fall back for now. But Shersho thinks Jonathan is the one who shot it off and doesn't listen. As soon as he steps out and shows himself, Lutz shoots him right through the heart while Wiley helps by spotting the shot. Wiley tells Lutz to aim for the head and Lutz fires another shot, this time killing Shersho. Right after that, Chinatsu begins to cry over Shisho's death. Then she steps out into the open, and Lutz takes a shot at her. She quickly grabs her pistol and holds onto Shisho's crucifix as Tojo and Lem also start firing at her. Chinatsu moves fast, jumping and flipping to avoid their bullets as she makes her way to the road. There, she stops a passing pickup truck and escapes by lying flat inside it. At the same time, a police car pulls up in front of Coco and Jonathan. The man driving tells Coco that she's under arrest for many crimes, and suddenly pushes the nearby officer aside. He says he watched the whole fight, but doesn't say who he really is. When Jonathan turns to Coco and asks what they should do, the man kicks him in the face, sending him flying into the harbor. Right after that, Coco gives a signal to her team, telling them it's time to fall back and leave. At the police station, the man tosses over his passport, which shows his name as Jerry Schatzberg, but he says everyone should call him Scarecrow, since that's the name people know him by. Later, Coco talks with the police commander, who tells her that Scarecrow works for the CIA. Coco explains that the CIA is trying to get back some of the money made from selling weapons. The commander admits he's kind of used to dealing with this kind of situation by now. As Coco leaves, Scarecrow gets angry that the police are pretending they don't know anything about the fight. Then, he notices one of the officers quickly texting on his phone and figures out what's going on. He suddenly rushes out of the room and finds Coco being walked out the front door by 2 officers. He punches her in the face before anyone can stop him. Coco walks out the front door, but suddenly stops. She remembers what Chinatsu said about getting revenge, and also what the commander told her that her team has to stay inside the hotel now because she isn't safe anymore. Jonathan is already outside waiting for her. He looks at her and asks if she's okay. A few days later, Chinatsu comes up to the roof where everyone is resting. She takes out her gun, but Coco quickly tells her to stop. Chinatsu understands right away that Coco is talking about a sniper watching her, so she slowly lowers her pistol. Then Coco asks her a strange question why she doesn't wear underwear, and says that if Chinatsu answers, she'll explain why she sells weapons. Chinatsu says that her first mission with Shersho was to take out a mafia boss who lived on the other side of a river. They had to cross the river, and she hated how her wet clothes felt below the waist. So without telling anyone, she took off her underwear. That day, her aim was perfect. Coco starts laughing after hearing the story, and Chinatsu points out that she is wearing underwear now. Coco then kicks Chinatsu's pistol away and quickly covers her headset, so no one else can hear what she's about to say. When Chinatsu says that Coco is scary, Coco looks at her and asks if she wants to join her team. But Chinatsu says no. She proudly says that orchestra is like artists, and their music is death played for their targets. She then pulls out a second pistol that she had hidden in her plot, but before she can shoot, the gun is shot out of her hand, and right after that, she gets shot straight through the heart. A few days later, Jonathan is at a cargo area when he sees Lutz and are messing around with some guns. Then Coco shows up, looking like a sneaky villain in disguise. Out of nowhere, she gets a call from the captain, who tells her that a freighter is coming. It's bringing extra cargo they left behind before. But then there's a surprise. She's told that her brother Casper is on that same freighter. Afterward, Coco quickly tells Wiley to hide Jonathan so nobody sees him. A little later, the freighter pulls up next to them, and Casper shows up with a shipment of VL Mica missiles. However, Casper says he already knows that Scarecrow tried to catch Coco. Casper warns Coco that she'll run into the Chinese in Africa, and they'll show up as the Taishanhai Company. Wiley also mentions that Jonathan seems to enjoy learning languages, but doesn't like math, since he often skips those lessons. Jonathan admits that's true. Then he says he's going to the bathroom, adding that he's not trying to run away or anything. After that, Casper goes to use the bathroom, where Jonathan happens to be as well. Jonathan pulls out a knife when he sees him, but Casper's bodyguard quickly steps in and stops him. Casper tells Jonathan that he sees this as a hello from when they first met 3 months ago. 3 months ago, Jonathan is serving as a child soldier at a military base. One day, a man named Yusuf who works for Casper comes to talk with the deputy commander. While Jonathan is trying to hand out food to some orphans living at the base, he starts to notice something strange and realizes that Yusuf isn't really a reporter, even though that's what he says he is. They try to hide the food when the deputy commander shows up, but they get punished anyway. 2 of the kids are taken away, and Jonathan gets beaten for trying to help them. Later, Jonathan finds a way to trick the soldiers by making them think there are more attackers than there really are and confusing them about who's behind it. He ends up killing most of the soldiers, including the deputy commander. After that, he finally faces Yusuf, who admits that he's actually an arms dealer, not a reporter. Yusuf tries to bribe Jonathan, but it doesn't work as he gets shot anyway. Then, Jonathan's new enemies throw a smoke grenade to block his view, and Chiquita sneaks up and grabs him from behind. After that, Casper arrives in a helicopter and comes to talk to him. While they talk, Casper shares a bit about his and Coco's past. He says even he was a little surprised that Jonathan turned on his old team. He doesn't care about Yusuf's death and says he was already planning to destroy the base by giving weapons to the deputy commander. But now Jonathan has done it for him, and for free. Back in the present, Coco is angry at how Casper and Chiquita treated Jonathan and kicks Casper off the ship. Afterward, Jonathan tells Casper that he's going to kill him, but Casper doesn't let him finish and just says goodbye. As Casper's freighter sails off, Jonathan talks with Coco about what happened. She tells him she's sorry for what Casper did. Jonathan walks away right before Mao comes to give him instructions. Hugo is surprised when Coco shows him the team's new car, since their last one got wrecked during the fight with Orchestra. Lem talks to Sophia and tells her not to be so tense, since they'll be staying in Africa for a while. Meanwhile, Jonathan climbs up to the crow's nest and enjoys the view from above. He remembers the time Casper came back and let him out of the crate, and how he found out Casper was the one who sold weapons to the enemies who attacked his village. Casper admitted that, in a way, he was part of the reason Jonathan's parents died. Casper sees that the boy has already made a choice to either use him or see him as an enemy. When Jonathan asks about the 3 orphans, Casper tells him they're safe and promises to move them to Japan. After that, Coco and her team are on the ship, and she asks Tojo for details about the enemies coming toward them. Tojo tells her that there's another enemy about 3 kilometers behind the first one. Soon, a boat shows up along with a helicopter. On the other side, Jonathan spots a second speedboat, which they call Enemy 3. Coco decides to focus on Enemy 2 and Enemy 3 first. She also identifies the helicopter as an Oryx armed with 80mm rockets. As the Oryx gets closer to the bridge from the front of the ship, Mao suddenly shows himself and starts firing a minigun. While Enemy 1 is busy dealing with that, Wiley takes the chance to throw an explosive charge onto their boat and blows it up. It seems like the danger is over, but then Jonathan spots a boarding ladder hooked onto the railing nearby. When Jonathan jumps over the side to shoot the person climbing up, he's shocked to see it's just a young boy holding an AK-47. As the sun starts to go down, Jonathan tells the group that he tried to save the boy, but the boy attacked him right after. Afterward, everyone starts laughing, and then Coco decides to throw the boy into the ocean and gives him lifesaver to swim away. At the same time at the international airport, Scarecrow meets up with Chun and Karen. He tells them that even though Taishanhai looks like a normal mining company, they are actually selling weapons in secret. Chun laughs and thinks he's just messing around. But before Scarecrow can say anything else, he gets a call about Coco. He quickly tells them that he wants to ask some things about Casper and walks outside to take the call. But right after Scarecrow steps out of the room, Karen walks up to his PMC guard. She distracts him by flashing her plot. She then attacks him with a series of fast hard hits that puts him down. Meanwhile, Scarecrow finds out that Coco was traveling on a Ukrainian cargo ship called the Atlas, which has already unloaded half of its shipment of VL Mica missiles. A little later, he also learns that one extra shipping crate was added to the delivery, and instead of getting paid in money, Coco was given diamonds. Just after that, he sees Karen and Chin quietly leaving the room. He finds the guard lying on the floor, clearly beaten, but he doesn't go after Karen and Chin. At the same time, Minami is getting her stuff ready for a trip to search for rare butterflies when one of her assistants, Makona, walks in and finds her. He tries to talk her out of going on the hike, because she's supposed to meet with Coco the next day at Daisa. But Minami surprises him by suddenly crying and saying she can't keep her promise to meet Coco. Later, Sophia and Coco talk about her, and Coco explains that Minami is a huge butterfly fan who takes it very seriously. At the same time, Minami tells Makona that even if her work is used for violent purposes, it still doesn't feel as heartbreaking as watching butterflies disappear forever. The next morning, Sophia is on the rooftop doing her usual workout while thinking about how many times she's been to Africa before. Jonathan arrives, and she gives him a rubber knife so they can train together. After showing him a few basic moves, she catches him in midair when he tries to dodge, then takes him back inside the building. At Daisa, Coco is waiting for Minami, though Lem thinks she won't come. Minami's secretary, Malin, shows up and begins to explain that Minami will be absent, but Coco quickly figures it out on her own. Malin also shares that Chan and Karen often visited Minami and even had meals with her in Port Elizabeth. Still, Minami hasn't said much about what they talked about. However, Malin then gives Coco the GPS coordinates of where Minami is heading. After that, Coco walks over to Jonathan, and they talk a little about the Weapons Expo. Right then, Chan shows up and introduces himself and invites Coco to have dinner with him that night, and she agrees. After that, Coco tells Lem she'll be meeting Chan later, and gives him Minami's GPS location, telling him to bring everything he might need. Chan tells his men to reach Minami before Coco's team does. Coco's team gets ready, wearing white camouflage, and Lem tells them their mission is to stop anyone who might try to hurt Minami. At the same time, Minami and Makona are already in the mountains. However, Minami is surprised when she sees Makona carrying an AK-47, and he tells her it's just to keep her safe. While Coco's squad moves forward on foot, Karen spots them from about 200 meters away, standing with her own team. Karen tells her men to move ahead, saying she plans to kill Minami to get revenge for the people Casper went after. The team quickly takes cover while Karen warns her men that it might be a trap and tells them not to move forward. One of the men then starts shooting ahead to try and force the enemy to show themselves, which works as they fire back and give away their positions. With both sides now caught in a gunfight, Karen pulls out 2 pistols, attaches a knife to each one using special mounts, and shoots the man who first fired back. She realizes he's the one who messed everything up back when Casper was involved. Meanwhile, Sophia spots Karen and suddenly recognizes her fighting style and weapons, realizing she's the same person who took her right eye and destroyed her unit back in Africa. After that, the team sits down to eat, and Coco, who eats like a hungry bird, seems to enjoy the food more than anyone else. Not far away, Scarecrow and Chocolate are having dinner too. However, Scarecrow is trying to spy on Coco and Chan while they eat. He complains that Chocolate didn't set things up well for this mission, but she doesn't seem to care. Meanwhile, Sophia and Karen are shooting each other. However, Sophia introduces herself and compliments Karen's fighting technique, but the latter refuses to tell her more. Somewhere else, Minami and Makona are resting at their camp for the night. Minami sighs and says she can't sleep because of all the gunfire in the distance. Makona doesn't say anything, but in his mind, he notes that it's hard to tell where the shots are coming from because the sound keeps echoing around them. Minami then quietly wonders if Coco is coming for her, since every place Coco shows up, there's always fighting. Meanwhile, Coco is playfully flirting with Chan. During their talk, Chan says he'd like to have a drink with Casper someday, but Coco shrugs and tells him that Casper has no manners and eats too much junk food. Chan doesn't like that answer. Even though things are tense, Scarecrow is happy because they're finally talking about what he wants. Chocolate asks if he's even listening to what Chan just said, but Scarecrow only cares about them talking about deals and weapons. Then they hear Chan bring up working with Minami, and Scarecrow quickly asks what her plans are for business. While this is going on, Karen kicks Sophia's gun away, and Sophia tells her that the way she moves is just like the man who destroyed her whole team. Jonathan tells Lem that he's seen Karen's men aren't used to fighting in the mountains, and says they'll probably come out if they pretend to be dead and stop shooting. Meanwhile, in the restaurant, Chocolate is hiding in the bathroom, trying to listen to anything Coco might say, while also complaining to herself about how badly Scarecrow treats her. She gets shocked when Coco suddenly shows up, climbs over into her stall, and gives her a warning to pass along. Out in the field, Karen sees one of her men go down, and Sophia moves forward and dodges every bullet Karen fires at her. Sophia slashes Karen's left arm, making it useless and knocking one of her pistols out of her hand. As Karen tries to reload her other gun, Sophia quickly rushes in and cuts off her magazine pouch, also hurting her right leg. Then Sophia starts yelling at Karen, but suddenly she remembers when her own team was wiped out, and she realizes Karen is now going through the same thing she once did. Lem brings her back to the moment by saying they're pulling out, since all of Karen's men are down, and they still need to find Minami. Sophia tries to tell him that Karen knows about her past, but Lem says they aren't thugs and asks if she really wants to interrogate her. Even though Scarecrow isn't happy with what Chocolate tells him, she suggests they team up with Coco, because if Coco dies, Scarecrow won't get any money back. At the same time, Coco and Chan both get calls and hear how their teams did. Coco says goodbye and leaves. Chan orders his bodyguard to tell a sniper on a rooftop who to shoot, and he gets so mad at Karen's failure that he smashes his cane against a chair and falls down. The next day, Minami and Makona arrive in the mountains, where they see butterflies flying around and feel the summer-like weather. While she's running around trying to catch some butterflies, she bumps into Jonathan and figures out that Coco's squad is finally here. They both stop and introduce themselves to each other. Back at Merkin, Coco feels a little down because she misses Minami. She tells her assistant, Marin, not to stress it and finds out that Minami went out to look for shells. At the beach, Minami walks with Makona while they pick up shells together. At the airport, Coco complains to Mao about how they had to leave their car behind in South Africa. Mao tells her it's not a big deal since only 2 people got hurt. Coco then says he should try to cheer up Hugo, who still feels really upset about losing the car. However, Jonathan sets off the metal detector, and when the guard looks at him, he says it's because he has a bullet stuck in his rice cakes. Both Lutz and Coco back him up and say it's true. As they wait, someone in line complains about how long it's taking. Sophia steps up and tells the man that Coco already said sorry. Then she grabs the man by the mouth, pushes him to the ground, and tells him that if he's really in such a hurry, she knows a faster way to get things done. Meanwhile, Lutz is moving carefully through the woods, trying to track down Jonathan, but he blames his inability to find him on his background as a police officer. He figures that Jonathan has the upper hand since he grew up in the mountains and knows how to handle terrain like this. Earlier at the shooting range, Sophia had introduced the team to some paintball guns they would be using for training and scolded Lutz for being the only one who got hit during their last real gunfight. Lem then gave Jonathan and Lutz a training exercise, telling them to head into the woods and play a game of capture the flag. The next morning, Coco and Sophia get ready to meet with representatives from a European country at their embassy, where a hearing is being held by the UAV Introduction Committee. Once they arrive at the embassy, they are informed by Tojo that their rival is planning to present their trump card. At Hyde Park, Coco talks to Jonathan about Amalia, explaining that this time she's trying to sell UAVs. While they walk together, they run into Chocolate, who tells Coco that her plan to sell American Predators to Country A will also give a boost to their potential sale to Country B. Just before Chocolate leaves, Coco mentions that she's aware Scarecrow is following her too. She then hands Chocolate a diamond and asks her to keep an eye on the Americans to make sure they don't try to pull out of the deal at the last minute. Coco then heads out to meet with the officials from Country B, taking Lutz and Hugo along with her. However, when they arrive at the hotel for the meeting, she's surprised and annoyed to find out that Amalia has already gotten there first, and the contact ends up turning her down. This frustrating pattern repeats in other places too, where she keeps getting beaten to the punch. Eventually, they meet with one last official named Marikis, who actually seems interested in the Predator drones and tells Coco that Amalia has been moving fast. Meanwhile, R starts to question if Wiley and Sophia will be enough support for Coco, but Lem tells him not to be concerned. They are also aware that Amalia's people are secretly following them. Then Tojo jokes that if he manages to finish the negotiations with Country B quickly, they can all go home sooner. Meanwhile, Coco has locked herself in her hotel room busy working non-stop, which makes Sophia a little worried. But Coco lightens the mood by jokingly wondering if all the snacks she's been eating will end up making her talents as big as Sophia's. Just outside the hotel, Coco's communications are being secretly listened to. The people eavesdropping hear her call Chocolate and admit that she's lost, explaining what her original plan had been. She finishes the call by saying that she'll still attend the meeting the next day, but only as a formality. Amalia, who has also been listening to the entire conversation, smiles and tells her associate that she's glad she never gave up acting, because in this bigger world, money can be earned through clever tricks and lies, but if someone gets caught pretending, there's always a price to pay. She says that all of Coco's calls over the past 3 days have just been acting and full of lies, and Coco admits this to Sophia without trying to hide it. At the hotel, Lutz and Wiley suddenly show up, and Lutz says that Country A's troop movements, which the US wanted to stop, have now stopped, and it looks like this was all part of Coco's plan. That night, Amalia meets with Marikis, and he is surprised to hear that the Luftwaffe is buying 20 Predators straight from the Americans. After hearing this, he leaves to go talk with Coco, while Amalia starts to realize that Coco's attack has already begun. Back in Germany, Chocolade feels proud and happy that she managed to hand over the contracts to the military officials who are working with Coco. Amalia starts to understand that Coco isn't just trying to break apart her network. She's actually going in for the kill. Right away, she calls Coco and asks to meet her as soon as possible. They meet by the waterfront, and the first thing Coco asks is if Amalia is carrying a weapon or has any snipers hidden nearby. Amalia replies that her bodyguard is armed but swears she's not planning anything shady. Meanwhile, over on a freighter in the harbor, Lutz and Hugo stay hidden under special cloaks that block infrared. Hugo thinks maybe Amalia honestly doesn't know about the snipers, since Lem had told them earlier that Country B sent extra help after they left England. As Lutz spots a second lone sniper in the distance, Hugo points out that Coco hasn't been sitting around for the last 3 days waiting to be attacked. She's been holding herself back on purpose. Amalia tells Coco that she should have known from the start that the face Coco shows is just a mask. Coco answers that Amalia did manage to see through her tricks to confuse her. But at the same time, she also saw right away that Amalia is an arms dealer who has never actually stepped onto a battlefield. And if she's never seen her weapons in action, then she doesn't really understand what it is she's selling. Not far away, an EA worker is secretly listening in on their chat and quietly gives the order for both snipers to shoot. But before anything can happen, Sophia shows up behind the worker and quickly cuts the wire to her headset, then calls out to warn Coco. However, Sophia starts to wonder why Coco was being so nice to Amalia, and Coco thinks it might be because Amalia told her it was nice talking to her. She does admit that Amalia was strong and not easy to deal with, and even says she'd rather not run into her again, but deep down, she knows they're definitely going to cross paths in the future. Afterward, everyone takes time to relax at the beach, enjoying the break. Tojo and Lutz stares at Sophia's talents from a distance. As they try to find a better angle to look at without being noticed, R beats them to it by walking up to Sophia and starting a casual conversation while giving her a shoulder massage. Meanwhile, back on the Atlas, Jonathan tries to stall and wait out his science lesson with Mao, hoping to skip it, but Mao tells him that he won't get to eat anything until he finishes the lesson. Jonathan finds out that Mao is married and has a son and daughter who are both younger than Jonathan. He then shares that no one else in the group has a family. Right after that, Lem suddenly sneezes on Tojo. Mao tries to go back to the lesson they were doing, but someone cuts in and asks what kind of soldier Mao was, changing the topic again. Mao shares that he used to be in the artillery, but he never took part in real combat. After a training accident got him discharged, he met Coco while in Asia, and that meeting led him to join her team. When Coco finds out about this, she understands and accepts it, but she also warns Mao not to let his kindness become a weakness and reminds him to be proud of his teammates. After they all finish dinner, Coco calls the team together and tells them that their next mission will take place in the sky. Lem quietly says that the sky is the one place he really doesn't want to see Coco working. At the airport, where the team is getting ready to leave on an Antonov An-12 plane, Coco finds out what their next delivery is. While waiting, Tojo asks Jonathan if he's met people like the ODH doctors before. Not long after that, the An-12 takes off. Right after that, Coco calls Jonathan to the cockpit and Maggie watches him go, quietly commenting that he's a cute child soldier. In the cockpit, Coco has Jonathan climb down into the nose of the An-12, where he gets an amazing view of the land below through the glass canopy. As the An-12 gets close to Autonomous Region X, Leon starts talking to the others on board. He says that if the Balkans are the powder keg of Europe, then Region X is like the firing pin that sets it off. He explains that the place has been fought over for hundreds of years and is full of people who were forced to leave their homes. Then he talks about Dragan Nikolijevic, the leader of a group called the Balkan Dragons. Dragan is the son of a general from Republic T. When he was younger, he did a lot of bad things, but he never got in trouble because his dad had power. Now, 30 years later, Dragan runs the militia like a crime gang and controls everything around him. At Planina Airport, an Air Force captain comes to collect the delivery and thanks Coco for bringing it. Then she points out the cargo to Mao D-30 ammunition. Mao looks at it and remembers a few things from his past, but only for a moment. Just then, a car pulls up and Dragan Nikolievich steps out and says he wants to take a look at Coco's cargo, meaning the 10 ODH doctors they brought with them. However, Coco stays calm and doesn't back down, even though Dragan is being loud and aggressive. Suddenly, Dragan gets mad and slams his walkie-talkie into the face of the Air Force captain who had just spoken with Coco. A truck full of more militiamen rolls in, making the situation feel even more tense. The captain explains that people in the area see Dragan as a hero, and even his own soldiers are loyal to him. He quietly tells Coco that she should leave right away and promises not to ask any questions about what else she might be carrying on the plane. Back on the plane, the doctors watch nervously as everything unfolds outside. Wanting to help, Leon decides to try talking to Dragan. He steps out of the plane and introduces himself, but Dragan quickly pulls out his pistol and shoots Leon in the shoulder. He tells Leon that people like him ruin everything he's trying to do, which makes him an enemy. After that, chaos breaks out as everyone starts shooting. Dragan, who is already hurt, limps over to his car. The Air Force captain yells at his men to stay where they are and pleads with Coco Hekmatyar to stop the fight, but she doesn't listen. Dragan grabs his pistol and is just about to shoot Coco when Mao quickly fires and hits his hand. Jonathan sees Dragan trying to get away and nearly pulls the trigger, but Coco stops him just in time. Dragan manages to escape in his car, and right after that, Jonathan smashes the recording camera to destroy the footage. Later on, Jonathan asks Coco why she stopped him from shooting, since he thinks he could have saved Riviere. Coco explains that Dragan wasn't worth it. She didn't want Jonathan to carry that kind of weight. She tells him that a knight's sword remembers everything it cuts, and she doesn't want him to lose his edge. Then Hugo points out that Dragan will probably come back with more soldiers. Mao then looks around and notices a D-30 122mm artillery at the airfield. Coco likes the idea and says they can use the big gun to destroy the Dragon's missile launchers. She tells the captain she'll buy one of the artillery guns from him with a 20% discount next time, but he just shrugs and says she can do whatever she wants. While Hugo and the co-pilot get the Antonov and 12 ready for takeoff, Marguerite asks where Riviere is and someone tells her that he was shot and taken away. She says she's sorry, but Coco replies that both she and Dragan are the ones who are actually crazy. In the countryside, Dragan gives a strict order to his men to shoot down the N-12 the moment it leaves the ground. As the sun goes down, the militia get into position around Planina Airport. They come with soldiers holding SAMs and driving self-propelled anti-aircraft guns. When the N-12 finally takes off, its infrared jammers turn on right away. The first SAM gets thrown off by the jammers and explodes in the air above the plane without hitting it. Inside the cargo hold, all the passengers are squished together in a big pile. The Dragons then start firing their anti-aircraft guns, but the jammers mess up their aim, making them miss. Right after that, Coco gives the order for the plane to climb higher. At the same time, 4 SA-9 missiles are launched into the sky. Then a beehive round explodes above the Dragons, sending out sharp flechettes that rain down on them. Mao watches the results and says the shot hit the target. The passengers hear this and all cheer loudly with relief. Coco tells Mao he did a great job, but reminds everyone to stay alert and not let their guard down. A little later, Coco quickly tells Scarecrow not to interrupt her and then explains that they've found Dragan. Scarecrow suddenly realizes Dragan has a $5 million bounty on his head. Coco offers to give him the exact location and let him catch Dragan, but only if he pays the full $5 million. Scarecrow gets really angry at the offer, so Coco ends the call without waiting. Right after that, she dials Chocolade and gives her the same offer, which she agrees to right away without any complaints. That night, Coco points out that if the Dragons had used the same SAM she's selling, they would have survived the attack. Marguerite thanks her for getting the doctors so close to the refugee camp, where they can finally start helping people. Then, during a phone call with HCLI headquarters, Coco finds out that they're already tracking Dragan's location by satellite. While they wait, Marguerite spots Coco standing alone off to the side, deep in thought. Coco then starts talking out loud, saying that people who kill too much eventually turn into Dragon's creatures that grow more violent over time until they lose the ability to speak. Coco finishes her thoughts by saying that Dragan has crossed the line and gone too far. Meanwhile, Lem and his team wait quietly by the side of the road, watching carefully as the convoy comes into view. As it gets closer, Lem remarks that the three of them have always been the ones cleaning up the messes ever since the old days. Then, without hesitation, Wiley sets off the explosives made from 122mm ammunition, blasting the convoy and destroying most of it, but leaving Dragon's car untouched on purpose. While they clean up the last of the enemies, sharp metal shafts fall on the car, messing with the people inside. After getting Riviere back with the other doctors, the team leaves. Afterward, Coco tells everyone that she usually doesn't take on small deals like this, and is only doing it because there's a big missile deal coming up next week. Sophia begins to zone out, and Coco notices right away. Sophia starts thinking about her past in Africa, back when she was a UN peacekeeper. She remembers how her whole unit was destroyed by Chan, and his face starts to mix in her mind with the way Karen Lowe fought during the battles in South Africa. The memory turns into a nightmare, and Sophia suddenly wakes up. Later on, Coco arrives and tells Sophia she's impressed that she became a major at such a young age. This surprises Sophia, and she starts to wonder how Coco even got inside the base, and how she already knows so much about her. However, Coco goes on to explain that she knows about Sophia's background, including her whole military family, even all the way back to her grandfather. When Sophia asks who Coco really is, Coco gives her two choices. She can either go back to her family and live a regular home life, since her military career is basically done now. Somewhere else, Dominique, Gregoire, and Liliane are finishing their mission. Dominique tells Gregoire to stop using bolt cutters on one of the men who had shot him earlier. While they drive away from the scene, Dominique complains that they won't get any payment just for wiping out the gang. Not until they take out the politician linked to it. Meanwhile, Coco wakes up and realizes Sophia is gone, so she starts looking for her. Sophia, on the other hand, gets off a truck she caught a ride with somewhere out in the countryside. She's surprised to find out that Jonathan somehow came along without her even realizing it. The next morning, while standing on the roof, Lem mentions that it looks like Sophia just vanished. Lem tells Coco that she always knew this day would come, but she's clearly upset that Jonathan has also disappeared. The rest of the team checks in and says they haven't been able to find Sophia or get in touch with her, and that Jonathan is missing too. At a small hotel somewhere, Sophia tells Jonathan to go back to Coco, but he refuses. In response, she gives him a quick punch to the face. When she tells him it's for his own good, Jonathan says that he's doing what's best for Coco, since that's what he always tries to do. He also points out that Sophia doesn't want to go back either. While sitting inside their camper, Dominique and his team talk about the next job they've been given. Dominique complains that now he understands why the job pays so much. It's going to be really hard to get to Coco, because her bodyguards are extremely skilled. Meanwhile, outside an oil refinery in the middle of the desert, Karen pleads with Chan to give her another chance, so she can fix her reputation after being beaten twice by the Hekmatyars. However, Chan tells her to think of it as her duty, and explains that the Central Military Commission told him to let her go. Karen becomes scared that the reason she serves Chan might be taken away from her, so she begs for any kind of job, even if it's something small and unimportant. But Lee steps in and roughly pushes her away from Chan, making her fall into the mud. When she reminds him that he's supposed to be under her command, he tells her that he's now a first lieutenant, and says that the Taishanhai company will keep growing and moving forward without her. Meanwhile, at an airport cafe, Chocolade tells Coco what she has found out about Chan, and she explains that he's not actually as old as he looks his body aged. He is the one who takes down Sophia's whole team, all by himself, by using a strange way of fighting. He holds two pistols, each with a knife on it, and moves super fast. The Taishanhai company's job is to protect oil factories, pipes, and important people. However, they also help start local gun factories and give support to nearby armies and fighting groups. Later that night, Coco brings weapons to a local mafia group, but instead of money, they try to pay her with cocaine. However, Coco tells them she only takes cash, and she opens one of the drug bags and lets the wind blow the powder away, shocking the mafia guys. Then she pulls out a pistol and shoots the boss right in the head. Her team quickly takes out the rest of the men, while Hugo stays close to protect her. As they bury the bodies, Lem reminds Coco that she promised she would always keep smiling. Afterward, she says that it's not always easy to keep a promise, but then she slowly smiles anyway. R starts to wonder what's going on with Coco, but Lutz tells him that this kind of thing is normal for her. At the hotel, Coco quickly drinks a full glass of wine and then heads into the shower while Lutz and Tojo get ready to begin their patrol. Suddenly, Gregoire shuts off the hotel's power and the whole place goes dark. At the same time, Lillian starts her mission to go after Hugo. In a flashback, Hugo's group once tried to bribe Coco, but even with the offer, she ended up killing everyone in the room. She told Hugo that the only reason she didn't kill him was because of the way he reacted when his boss opened the briefcases filled with cocaine. Hugo remembered thinking that this was the same stuff that led to his brother's death. In the present, Hugo just seconds away from getting his head cut off by Gregoire. Lem, who had been knocked out for a short moment by Gregoire, wakes up and smashes a chair over his head. Hugo charges at him and slams him through the wall, crashing into Coco's room and surprising her. Afterward, Lem tells Hugo to forget about Gregoire and get Coco out of there by car. Meanwhile, outside, Dominique is getting ready to move in when Hugo and Coco suddenly speed past him in their car. However, Hugo asks Coco if they should head to the safe house, but she says no, thinking the assassins probably already know about it. She tries to shoot at Dominique, but his headlights are too bright and she can't see clearly. Dominique says he got away with a close call, which reminds him why going after an arms dealer is such a bad idea. Still, since their car is going so fast, he figures all he has to do is make them crash. As Dominique gets closer, Hugo suddenly spins the car in a turn so it faces Dominique's car straight on. The two cars fire at each other until Dominique's engine takes too much damage and his car is forced off the road. Though he survives the crash, Dominique tries to call Lillian and Gregoire, but can't get any signal. The next morning, while Jonathan is eating, he suddenly passes out because Sophia had secretly drugged his food. A little later, Jonathan wakes up, having expected that Sophia might try something like this. Meanwhile, Sophia arrives at the oil refinery. Two guards try to stop her, but she quickly kills both using a knife in each hand. Elsewhere, Lee reports the attack to Chan, who tells him to handle it. Lee finds out the attacker used a knife and is a white woman. Just before Sophia kills the guard who's reporting in and keeps moving through the refinery, taking down anyone in her way using only her knives. Afterward, Lee moves to a position outside the refinery and tells his men to guide Sophia into his line of sight so he can take her out with his sniper rifle. He wonders how he could have missed his shot, then suddenly notices he's bleeding from the head. At that moment, Jonathan had fired and hit him just as he pulled the trigger. Jonathan finishes him off and shouts to Sophia that he's got her covered while she goes after Chan. However, Sophia makes it deep into the refinery and kicks open the door to Chan's office, saying out loud that she can hear the voices of her fallen teammates celebrating. Meanwhile, Karen Lowe wakes up and heads to the refinery. When she gets there, she sees a group of workers gathered outside the gate and hears what just happened. Inside Chan's office, she finds his body with a knife stuck through his heart. Shocked and upset, she tries to stay calm when she notices Sophia's knife still stuck in Chan's desk. Back in town, Jonathan and Sophia are getting ready to leave. Jonathan is still feeling weak from the drug, and when he nearly falls, Sophia catches him. Meanwhile, Karen jumps out of her car and immediately draws her pistol, firing at Jonathan and Sophia, but missing with her first shot. Sophia quickly moves to shield Jonathan with her own body as Karen keeps walking forward, shooting until she hits Sophia several times and runs out of bullets. A few days later, when Sophia tries to move, she screams from the pain in her side and Coco tells her that on top of the midsection wound, she also took a bullet in the thigh. Afterward, Coco notices that Sophia cut her hair and tells her to either grow it out again or cut it short like she used to. When Sophia asks if Coco is angry with her, Coco says she is, explaining that Karen had been recovering in bed right next to hers but has now disappeared. Coco then starts complaining about all the hush money she had to spend paying off doctors, covering the cost of the helicopter ride to the hospital, hiding Jonathan's involvement, dealing with the damage caused, and even paying for Karen's treatment. That last part, she says, is what really makes her mad. She adds that this time, she actually helped Sophia pull it off, and now both of them are slowly turning into something dangerous. But then Coco also says that what truly matters to her is that Sophia managed to bring the souls of her fallen comrades back home to Finland, and for that, she has her full respect. She even calls her by her old military rank, Major. Outside the hospital, Coco and Jonathan walk side by side, casually talking about the attack from Dominique's team. When Coco brings up that Lutz got shot in the butt again, Jonathan laughs and Coco smiles, saying she really missed seeing him smile. Meanwhile, Black George heads to the airport, and over in Paris, he's thinking that the reason he has to meet his contact halfway is because Coco is currently in Egypt. He rides a bus to a church and waits there at night, sitting quietly in one of the pews. Eventually, his contact shows up and it turns out to be R. How long until Jonathan becomes the ultimate weapon in Coco's arsenal? Let us know in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content.